The Persona series began as a niche little set of role-playing games spun off from one Shin Megami Tensei, full of quirky RPG game mechanics, funny localization choices, and other stuff that I probably am not allowed to mention within the first 30 seconds of a YouTube video. Gradually, Persona evolves past that identity, changing with time, showing us its true form. I am thou, thou art I, door. Persona 1 features a demon invasion, which is very close to its parental franchise, but underneath is still a plot revolving around attitudes and relationships of humans who live in a society. If Persona 2 doubles down on this, then Persona 3 completely gives in, letting you harvest each of those connections to experience a world where the full value of just a single person is put on display and everything they mean to the people around them. In other words, waifu! Persona 4 is also great for many reasons that I'm gonna skip over for now, but much like Eternal Punishment, reuses the same engine and doesn't do a whole lot of changing for the series outside of general vibe. Not that it really needed to, but it did release as a PS2 game long after the PS3, and as the eyes on the Persona series reach an all-time high, everyone is curious to see what will happen next if Atlus can pull off the current-gen Persona game. It would be a long wait to find out, but finally, it happens in winter of 2014, in 2015, in summer of 2016, Valentine's Day 2017. I don't know, random ass Tuesday in spring. Persona 5 had quite a first year, breaking records in both Japan and the United States for the franchise. It gets nominated several times at the Game Awards and wins a few memes. Let's not forget about those classic memes. It takes its place in history as a part of 2017's Superstar lineup. Today, Persona 5 has like a more you better be careful who you say you like Persona 5 around reputation, thanks to Atlus's refusal to move beyond it and some rather strange behavior from fans, calling constantly into question whether or not this one single game is truly worth all the hama mahama. You might just see this as glazing something that's already got Elmer's glue armor. Like, we could do this whole song and dance of me saying Persona 5 is the best Persona game and one of the best games ever, in the comment section furiously disagree, and go about our day. Unfortunately, call me the first 3 hours of Persona 4 because I'm about to drag it out. Reflecting upon my favorite Mega 10 games, how they made me feel, and in this case, many others around me, I think there's something about Persona 5 that is to be far more appreciated than just it existing in its own franchise, and that's the effect it had on its genre as a whole. Do not get me wrong, I think Persona 5 is a great game regardless of when it came out. Even if it came out today, it would still be peak Sona, but there was a reason so many people were anticipating it in the mid-2010s, and that's because it had a point to prove. See, right around the time of Persona 4, there was something happening to turn-based games. They were vanishing. Hardware limitations at the time are generally what is believed to have birthed the turn-based format. Obviously, everyone would probably have preferred real-time, adrenaline-fueled, energetic Dragon Ball battles, but that ain't happening on this thing. So, developers think instead about tabletop gaming. They recognize that games like Dungeons & Dragons, despite a hefty amount of turn-taking and decision-making, can still bring to life the imaginative aspects of role-playing. Boom. Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, and later Mother, Suikoden, Wild Arms, Shining Force, the golden age of the turn-based RPG is the 1990s. And all these series continue to reproduce through the 5th and 6th generation, spanning multiple entries. But then in the mid-2000s, the Great Leap happens. Finally, the technology exists for JRPGs to comfortably transition to real-time combat, and not only that, three-dimensional, high-definition, voice-acted, giant enemy crab. These games were money. It specifically begins with Final Fantasy, the longest and most notable face of JRPGs, then leaving behind its turn-based roots in favor of Final Fantasy I've actually never played Final Fantasy I've never played a Final Fantasy, and is made popular via many other action RPGs, Kingdom Hearts, Tales of Symphonia, Rogue Galaxy. A lot of people also attribute Western RPG influence, like this IGN piece from 2006. Mind you, these aren't like the action RPGs of the 90s with an overhead view smacking sprites around. No, there's a full party of characters running around simultaneously attacking in battle. It's all animated and it's all glorious, but within this, a certain opinion is birthed, and I'm sure you know exactly the one. Turn-based combat is outdated. There's no inherent need to keep it around when I can play as the f***ing crop top emo boy and run around.
The enemy has been spotted.
Turn-based combat on home consoles in the 7th gen exist as a joke. But in Japan, the Xbox 360 was a deadbeat and the PS3 was expensive to develop for. These were not great financial options for studios still committed to the ancient art. So because turn-based RPGs were seen as under-budgeted and underpowered, they end up moving to the underpowered consoles. Handhelds. Whether it was Dragon Quest, Shin Megami Tensei, Lunar, even Suikoden, and yes, even Lufia, the rule was pretty simple. Consoles were for real-time combat with voice-acted in 3D environments. Handhelds were for turn-based games that kept sprites, text boxes, bird's eye perspective, and dick-sucking. Some people refer to this period as the dark age of turn-based. I think that's personally a bit extreme. I mean, the 7th gen had like 3 trends. I'd just say it's a dark age in general. Granted, there are still turn-based games on home consoles during this time, games like Eternal Sonata, Lost Odyssey, and Apuna. How's that? One from each. But these games aren't super f***ing the club up and definitely not enough to get sequels or even remasters today. It ain't exactly hard to understand why developers wouldn't want to do a turn-based RPG on home console when it's so much cheaper, easier, and fits in so much better on a handheld with games like Pokemon. Persona 5. Persona 5 has an incredibly difficult job. Here is the amount of Mega 10 games on the PlayStation 2 in North America, and here is the amount on the PlayStation 3 before Persona 5 released. Here is the amount on the DS and the amount on the 3DS, even though that's not really relevant, it just kind of brings me a lot of joy for some reason. In the transition to HD, Atlus knew they had a lot to accomplish with their limited resources, so much that they even came out with another game to test their own abilities. Catherine.
I think I'm pregnant.
But it's not just if Atlus can create Persona 5 and make it a good game, it's if they can make this game a reason for turn-based phobic people to come and see its strengths. I always... Hey, can you give me a hand super quick? Always. I can never imagine a world where Persona isn't turn-based. That's not true, but even in the lead up to this game, I remember so many people saying, ooh, this game would be even better if it wasn't turn-based.
No, you wrong. You just wrong. Shut the f up and be wrong. It's okay to be wrong.
And guess what? Now I know people who say this is the game that got them into it, because Persona 5 succeeded hard and introduced an entirely new generation who had missed out on it to a turn-based game that's also triple I might and now actually let me open this segment with a take too hot for YouTube. Persona has become the Dark Souls of Atlus games. Why do you call it the Dark Souls of Atlus games, Voyan? Yes, viewer of my video, here it is. There is so much happening everywhere all at once. How can you expect the average person to be aware of it all? You can't. And so we put our faith in the biggest ears of the world to consume that information for us and recycle back only the most important summaries. Yes, we rely on the journalists. It's been kind of rough. In the wake of non-stop convenience and accessibility in video games, options to make games easier and save as often and wherever you want, Dark Souls hits the scene and reminds people why adversity matters. Give nothing to the player, no instructions, no plot. It's not supposed to be easy, but the journey is a valuable one, and triumphing over challenge is an incredible feeling. Gamers resonate. They really like the values brought along by Dark Souls. And in this instance of fresh gold being struck, everything suddenly becomes Dark Souls. It's actually borderline insulting that you could be given a game with as much to learn as Dark Souls and people just go, oh, it's hard. Now let's take a look at Persona 5, which comparing it in any regard to Dark Souls would be a skydiver jumps without a parachute. You might even say it's the Dark Souls of comparisons. With Persona 5 reminding people that turn-based combat can actually be fun and modern and simulation elements and elemental rock, paper, scissors. It does not invent any of these elements, and yet journalists continue to come. Persona is immortalized not just as a good game, but as the journalist buzzword for any turn-based RPG where you can date a can of ravioli, capitalizing on its high familiarity with... If you want to summarize a game positively, say it's like Persona, but to criticize it, say it's not like Persona. And as much as I hate how one-dimensional these headlines that are competing for attention sound, does that not prove the cultural impact of one Persona 5? Woo! Looking cool, Joker! Today, turn-based RPGs have a much easier time releasing, and I wouldn't quite say we're in a golden age, but we're definitely really far away from the 7th gen canon of them being minimized to All my friends think Mother 3 is a Pokemon ROM hack. Yeah, I'm talking about you, Jen. But is that because Persona 5 saved the entire genre? Do we have this game to thank for the home console renaissance of turn-bassery? No, because these types of games always existed. They continued to exist before and after Persona 5. I'm gonna be honest with you, I've played a lot of this shit, and I can't even confidently say that Persona 5 revolutionizes turn-based combat. But what it does do is prove that gamers are still interested in it, and that there has been a lot of growth in the genre since the 90s, because Persona 5 refreshes it. And if we rephrase the question to, is Persona 5 responsible for shifting turn-based RPGs back into the spotlight that is home console? Then the answer is, yeah, I guess, sorta. And also because the handhelds just stopped existing or became extremely popular hybrid consoles, which might explain why some turn-based RPG developers still act like they're developing for handheld. Dude, even Dragon Quest XI, which came out the same year as Persona 5 in North America, got a 3DS version, and it sold better than the PS4 version, at least initially. Persona 5 can't really be credited with saving the genre, but it did show that there was a path forward. For the first time that decade, we saw a turn-based RPG up for Game of the Year, one that sold millions and is still Atlus's best-selling game and is still used in reference and promotion for other turn-based games. The next year, we'd have Octopath Traveler. The year after that, Fire Emblem 3 Houses, Baldur's Gate 3, Sea of Stars, and of course, Claire Obscure, this year's version of the game that saved turn-based. Either way, if it's not obvious, games like this have a much better chance than they used to a decade ago. Just take a look at the biggest example, Yakuza.
Yakuza!
The only thing crazier than a game series switching from action to turn-based in the modern day is it doing so successfully. When they first showed off the trailer for Yakuza 7, people thought it was an April Fool's Day joke, and the evidence for this is strong because if you look at the upload date, you'll notice it was uploaded April 1st. They must have been extremely committed to the joke because this is a well-made trailer that seemed to have taken lots of just kidding, that's the actual game. Yakuza 7 will be a turn-based RPG. Damn, I might have to frame that. And what else? Character sim elements, elemental weaknesses. I know people have seen it. They've witnessed the impact of Persona 5. Not shocking when both of these franchises have Sega at the helm. But for these two games to flourish and become the best selling in a series that has existed since 2006 proves that the future of turn-based games has never been brighter. Thank you for your service.